Hello, everyone. Welcome to the sixth edition of the Friday Evening Talk with Amit. Now, the festive season is coming up. I'm sure that you are ready to make the most of the last few days of 2020. Many people are saying many things about this year, but from a different perspective, you may say that this year has been a great learning for not only us individually, for mankind in general. And therefore we are more prepared in case such things happen again. On that note, we would like to remind you that knowledge is one of the biggest powers that can make any transformation possible. And Dr. Amit Goswami, along with his collaborators, have started a master's and PhD course on quantum science of health, prosperity, and happiness, together to make people aware of how they can transform not only themselves but the planet in general. We have been talking about the offshoots of our master's and PhD programs which we will be running. We have been talking about something on relationship, human relationship. There is a video series called Sex, Love, and New Physics, which will be shortly published, and we will be able to offer you all the insights that quantum physics have on relationships. And as we were talking about the importance of the master's and PhD program and the sub programs that are in there, the courses that are in there, which can by themselves become very interesting and appealing, now we have news. We have another such course. And this relates to something very, very important to most of the mankind. It relates to God. Yes, God. We are raising this subject in a forum backed by quantum physics. And there is a good reason for it. We had an informal discussion with some of our students, some of our fellow colleagues, and we found some very interesting questions being asked on this subject. We'll put some of these questions to Dr. Amit Goswami and Dr. Valentina Onisor. If they can be on the screen, please. Well, so we'll put these questions to Dr. Goswami and Dr. Onisor and see how they respond. For reiteration's sake, Dr. Goswami is the founder of Quantum Activism Vishwalayam and is also a tenured lecturer, professor of physics in the University of Oregon. He retired almost 25 years back. And in the last 4 decades, what he has done, the magnitude of what he has done is incalculable. And his work has touched millions of lives across the world and still doing so. And I'm sure that this will be a continuous process going forward. He is the quantum activist. So my first question, the beginner's question, from a layman's point of view to Dr. Goswami will be, what is God?
Very good question, of course. God is generally recognized as a higher power, and that recognition is supported by quantum science. Indeed, we find in quantum science that consciousness is the ground of all being, and consciousness affects us by choosing the possibilities that are available to us. Is this consciousness God? Well, it is characterized by oneness of all of us. And certainly, from time immemorial, God as oneness is a favorite way of spiritual traditions to put it. Unfortunately, this has to be admitted because many people, guided by popular religion, think of God as a person. Specifically in the West, there is a tremendous tendency of thinking of God as a white bearded guy sitting in a throne in the outer space. Please don't think this way. Although it's very tempting because you could love such a white guy, and God is lovable, certainly. But please don't think that way because there's so much misleading consequence. Like God can punish us and reward us. No, those things don't apply in the conceptualization of God that is emerging from science and that has been experimentally verified, by the way. Today, God is the concept that can be and has been experimentally verified. Even our relationship, that we are of the same capacity as God, if we can access God, that too has been verified. So we are living in great times.
Did you just say that God has been experimentally verified? And if so,
Yes.
what about
Yes.
the supernatural powers of God then? How can a
Well,
God be experimentally verified?
supernatural powers, that concept is interesting. All religions think that miracles can happen. That's a debatable thing. So far, we find that many of these miracles are healing miracles and they have a scientific explanation. Many other miracles too are finding scientific explanation, but we should leave our mind open. It's too soon to make any final conclusion on whether miracles can happen or not. But I'll tell you this, that there are evidence from the scientific point of view suggesting that if miracles happen, they may be considered miracles today, but eventually some scientific explanation could be given probably with deeper understanding of consciousness and God. Right now, this concept of oneness, the scientific explanation is a ability to communicate instantly. This idea that we can instantly communicate, has been verified. This is why I said, without any hesitation, that yes, concept of God has been verified. Non-locality is a widely accepted phenomenon of science. And quantum non-locality means only one thing. If you understand quantum physics properly, it means that consciousness that chooses actuality out of quantum possibilities, that consciousness is one. We all belong to that same consciousness.
If we go back in the history of time, in recorded history, God has always been there. Can you just take me through your views on the origin of God?
Yes, this is also tentative because anthropological history is hard to build. Nobody was there at the time. But what anthropologists have pieced together, and then we combine quantum scientific ideas with that, it seems that initially the idea of God came about in terms of unexplained phenomena of nature. They were called nature gods. There are little gods and goddesses came a little bit later. Initially, they were only male gods. Uh, but soon, understanding deepened, and nature gods like God for thunder, God for lightning, God for rain, that concept was replaced by what we now call archetypal God, God of love, God of justice, God of death, God of goodness, this kind of thing. And then the discovery of oneness, that of course happened. At the same time, in some parts of the world, the concept grew that all these gods, uh, archetypal gods, should be replaced by one monotheistic God. Unfortunately, that monotheistic God was recognized within a philosophy called dualism, God separate from the world. So when the idea of oneness and consciousness is the ground of all being emerged, that gave rise to spiritual tradition, God was interpreted once again. And this is the interpretation that you find in the Upanishads, in Jesus' teaching, in the Kabbalah. And this interpretation is wonderful because it says that yes, God is part of that oneness. God represents the causal power, and God also represents itself in the human brain in a state which can be called quantum self. In Christianity, it's called Holy Spirit. But that's the entry to God. If we can be in the Holy Spirit state, it's just one more step to be identified, identical with God, God realization. So these things that have been around in the esoteric traditions of all religions, these concepts are all being supported by quantum science. This is wonderful news and experimentally found. This quantum self idea, Bain data has verified that.
That's wonderful to know. But we have a very interesting question from one of our audiences. And the question says that we are very familiar with the phrase, man proposes, God disposes. Is there a way to align our will to God's will?
Yes, this is a very good saying. We change it a little bit. We say it's a do approach to God. What that means is that proposing is proposing various imaginary aspects, imaginary solutions to what we are seeking, and then B is relax about it. Let God do it. So this do is the same concept of man proposes, God disposes. Does God really dispose? Yes, we have now discovered the explanation of the empirically found creative process. Indeed, if we do for a while, God disposes in the form of a creative insight. This insight comes to us like a lightning bolt. We call it quantum leap, a discontinuous change in the way we think, and then we manifest it. Again, a little bit of more man has to eventually change in accordance to what God disposed. In other words, unless we bring the insight into some kind of manifestation, creativity is wasted. So manifestation is very important.
You mentioned about do. In many of your books, this is a concept which is associated with creativity of any kind, and this has been practiced by hundreds and thousands of people in their lives, and they have found it very useful. But for our general audience, would it be possible to explain this process in a very brief manner?
Well, I will try. I did already, I think. So, do is the part where we imagine solutions to what we want to do. We don't know what to do, right? That's why we are researching. That's why we are trying to be creative about discovering an answer to the question that we have. So that's the do part, the part that we do. And then the B part is we just relax. Let God do the rest. And indeed, it is called unconscious processing. But if we have done our do part to raise some new possibilities, then God responds in a new way and chooses among these possibilities eventually after a series of doobie doos. One time doobie doo doesn't work, but a series of doobie doos with many different possibilities tried out, then God does the rest indeed and gives us an insight. And that insight is what we call a quantum leap, and that is creativity about. That is what creativity is about.
Wonderful. Well, this discussion, I'll have another question. I'll get back to you, Dr. Goswami, in a moment. But this discussion is basically a series of questions that people have raised in our internal classes, in our internal forums about the course on spirituality and quantum physics. What we found out is that, like the relationship part, this is also a very, very interesting subject for any general person. So we are also going to come up with a separate video course on God and quantum physics and various aspects of it. The relationship video that we have been talking about, sex, love, and new physics. Along with this, we'll have a full series of various such topics which are found to be very exciting by our participants, by our students, and those subjects which we feel can add positive value to a general audience. So, the next question I have for Dr. Goswami is a question that has already been answered in some form or the other, but I'd still like to phrase this question. Many people find it difficult to have a very clear distinction between spirituality and religion. In the view of quantum physics, how are these two different?
Well, religions have a basic agreement with spirituality. Depends on which religion you are talking about, but to a varying degree, all religions agree that there is a higher power, that's God. All religions agree that God connects with us with subtle bodies, not the gross physical material, but with the help of the mind and vital energies. Uh, and of course, all religions are pretty clear about we hear God's voice through the experience of intuition. And what we intuit is God's message. There are aspects of God, archetypes. That's the word that Plato created, but archetypes are aspects of God, virtues of God. What are they? They're like abundance, power, goodness, love, truth, beauty, justice, wholeness, and self itself. And it is these archetypes that define the purpose of the human life. So when is God in our side? God is in our side when we explore these archetypes and embody them.
Thank you, Dr. Goswami. Now, we have one short question for Dr. Valentina Onisor. And Dr. Onisor is a medical doctor. And this question relates to a medical thing. And Valentina has done numerous workshops across the world alongside Dr. Goswami and by herself, and helped many people in integrative medicines. So, integrative treatment is different than pure allopathic or pure any one system of treatment. What Dr. Onisor does is that she is a master of many such disciplines, and he puts the best of them together and heals the patient in the best possible way. Now, Dr. Onisor, being a doctor, I would link this question to what Dr. Goswami was talking about when he was talking about miracles, that healing is seen as a miracle in many of the instances. So, what do you think is the role of quantum physics in healing?
Well, of course, you must have heard about quantum healing, right? It was a term introduced by Dr. Deepak Chopra. And when you say quantum healing, of course, that is the quantum leap. And all of these leaps, the fundamental leaps of transformation, they happen only through the manifestation of the divine grace. Okay. So, and you said that I'm healing the people, and indeed, I had the patients with worst possible diseases or illnesses, right? But I just tell you a quote from great surgeon Jacques Paré, yeah, and he was very famous for saving a lot of soldiers on the battlefield with his surgical operations without much tools at that time. And he was saying, I treated him, but God healed him. Okay. And also, maybe you heard about Paracelsus, the great healer and alchemist. He used to say that God has been providing all that is needed to the human being to be cured. And the role of the science is to find it. So, and the art of healing is starting in nature. And then one should look in nature in order to learn. All right. Now, maybe from your own experience, whenever you have a problem, you just look initially for a quick fix, but especially when it's a more severe case, like cancer or anything which is more serious, and you see that you're doing so many things, then eventually you need superior intervention, right? And that, of course, is coming from the conscious, from the higher consciousness, and another thing is that whenever you see people which they heal from these very severe diseases, and I saw in my life, whether they engage a process of very deep forgiveness, in their life, or anything, which is bringing in their life meaning and purpose, they all truly they find meaning and purpose in their life. And this also, you can say that is done, it's not a linear process at all, so all the quantum processes, they are not linear, and they need this superior intervention. Okay, just again, it's not God sitting on a throne somewhere and it's very far to reach, or that it's a punishment. They're not at all. They are lessons of love for growing. To me, I mean, love is the most fundamental energy and reality of the way how God is manifesting and through any kind of events in our life. And for a healing to happen, we have to really recognize this healing power of the consciousness of downward causation with freedom to choose. Yeah. So this consciousness has the required wisdom, in the supramental compartment, and the mechanism also of choosing this new context for the mental processing of emotions, right? And also the same consciousness, it has the power to discover what is needed and to make this quantity of insight, what Dr. Goswami was saying just before. And it can manifest the insight by unblocking the vital feeling, yeah, or the vital energy at the affected chakra, because when you speak about the chakras, then you can also refer to the organs which are correlated with the chakra. And the spontaneous healing of a cancer, let's say, is due to the sudden onset of such a dynamic surge in the immune system that the cancerous growth is destroyed within days and sometimes even within hours. And yes, it happens. But then again, referring to what just Professor Goswami said, the phase of manifestation is essential, because this kind of miracles, which can happen spontaneously or by consciously engaging in the creative process in the stages that we really talk about, because they're very important. It cannot be anything stable, because again, it is a transformation. Transformation, think of it like from the ego perspective, transformation is death. And same with love. From the ego perspective, love, when is kind of dying, that the death of the ego. So again, when this transformation, this insight, they come, in the process of healing now, yeah, then you need to really manifest that. So you're changing, you're shifting your life according to that insight, So again, when we speak, like if you're a doctor, you cannot truly engage in this honest quantum healing and work with other people, other patients, before you have healed yourself, and you have to become aware. So without an honest introspection, the self-healing is impossible, okay? Because you need to, the more you are aware of all your levels, of everything that happens there, and especially all the garbage we carry, unfortunately, in our mental life, yeah, and which can be very, very bad resonances, actually, which eventually they manifest as a disease if you transform, if you allow them, if you're feeding on those negative emotions, negative emotional brain circuits. As you know, they're very powerful, and truly they don't do anything good for us. But again, without an introspection, you cannot engage in the self-healing, and then again, you cannot engage in others people's healing. And it's kind of the first thing to do is to become very lucid and detached and see where we are, or yeah. And then the more you work with yourself, the more you will be able to work with the others appropriately. And the method, of course, they can be very, how to say, non-conventional, yeah? Because you are putting, when the patient is coming in front of you as a doctor, you're healing yourself with that person. It's a tangled hierarchy process. You're really learning with that person. And even more, when the person comes to you, he can say whatever he wants, I have this, but actually you may even see immediately what is the problem there, because you have worked with yourself. So again, the more you transform, the more you work with yourself, the most efficient you will be together with the other patients. And again, you will not feel tired at the end of the day after working with them. So again, after you've done this kind of introspection of course, it has to be a positive, like a firm, optimistic, but very perseverant way how you see this process, and seeing many times the disease is a consequence, like I said, of maintaining certain negative resonances. And when you see that resonance, when you really see that in all its depth, even 70% of the problem can be done, you know. And many times, like I said, there are spontaneous cases of remissions, you know. But again, you will find among the terminal phase patients people who miraculously cured, you know. And the first thing they describe again is the fact that they saw the light and that they saw this extraordinary peaceful, harmonizing divine energy, which they have regained. And then suddenly the illness is gone, you know? And everything is gone and their life is completely transformed. And sometimes it's really suddenly. But again, they have to go to manifestation afterwards. But the first thing they describe is that, yes, I was ill, but there's nothing. I was just separated from this light. And now I'm not separated anymore, you know? And that's how they all describe. And this is actually the reason why when you hear these near-death experiences, they have this experience of light, you know, and then suddenly they come back, you know, and it's kind of you have to embody that, you have to manifest it, and even inspire others. Yeah. So a spontaneous remission in this way of looking at things is the result of a creative insight of our ability to choose the healing path of many possibilities which are generated by this unconscious processing. Yeah. And this choosing is the work of downward causation of quantum consciousness, another name for God. Okay. And then a person which has a relationship with God is a person who is ready for transformation and actually is ready for life. Yeah. A person who is afraid of life is a person who is afraid of God. And it's a person who doesn't have a relationship with God, and a person who's running away from all that which is infinite, which is actually everything. So and of course, for example, the last thing which I will tell you, because of course that's a long subject, worthwhile to study and to experience the whole life. Yeah? In the process of forgiveness, because I was thinking about that, engaging in this relation, you know, is fundamental. Okay, and it's even the one of the stages is to forgive even God himself. You know, it may sound strange, but actually the vindicative ego may think, like, may make a representation of God in a way that God himself is responsible for all those events, you know, for not having protecting us, for letting those things manifest to us or to others. And in this way, when you have this attitude, actually you are closing at a very high level towards the main aspect which can bring this complete healing and transformation. So you're locking yourself in a box when we do that. You know? So you will see, like, if you engage in that process of forgiveness, you will see what's happening. You know, when you become aware that that is just a projection of your ego, you know, in a limited way to see certain events and refusing to see their message of transformation or of acceptance, you know, whatever is there. So
Thank you,
the
Dr.
Pandora
Onisor. Well, I'll just get back to you in a while, but before that, I'd like to say that there are three types of people in the world. First, who do not understand quantum physics. Second, who do understand quantum physics. And third, who does and does not understand quantum physics. Now, in our courses, we have designed it in such a way that all three categories are welcome. So if you look at our master's degree or a PhD degree, it does not necessarily, or a student does not necessarily has to be from a non, from a science background. It can be from any background. Even we have people from, obviously with Dr. Onisor, there are people from medical studies, there are people from accounting, there are engineers, all fields, arts people. Our courses specializes and prides itself in presenting it in a form that is understandable by anyone. So if you are interested, we still have a couple of seats left for our master's and PhD program. You can contact us at info@amitgoswami.org. You can visit the site www.amitgoswami.org and find all the information that is there. And we'll be very, very happy to respond to you, assist you in any way we can. Now, again, coming back to Dr. Onisor, there is an expectation that at the end of the show, you will share some practice with the audience, which can be
Yes, of
done
course.
on a daily basis, easy and brief. So, over to Dr. Onisor.
Yes, yes, of course, I will do. Do you want me to do it now or in the very end?
No, you can do it now. After this, we will end this show. This is the last item on the card.
Okay. Hello. Right. So then we will do a very simple method, so which every single person can do. But of course, you need to really feel that you want to do it, like not just superficial curiosity, because it will be a method to evoke the divine grace, which you can do for yourself, or you can do for a person in need, or you can do for a dear one. Yeah. But of course, like first of all, you need to really have that in your heart that you want to open towards perceiving the divine grace, which also is a method of protection. And in these times, we need a lot of that, of course. And another way for the manifestation of the divine grace, it's the Holy Spirit in the Christian tradition. So this is how what we will do now. And it's a very beautiful method that we do it in short. Yeah, you can do it longer time if you're at home. So you can also do it with the group, right? You can, the group nowadays, as you see, with all these problems, with the crisis situation where we are, it's a lot of applications of the non-locality, So the groups, the people which are working from home, but also groups which can unite in meditation. We have many groups of meditation worldwide with different subjects of work, So you can do this in a group together for a certain person, for example, when you want to help a person to heal, for example, because this is the subject now. So what you do, you first of all, you close your eyes, you sit with the back straight, take a few deep breaths, and just pay attention to the breathing. Try to relax consciously your shoulders, your belly, and simply with the help of the breathing, allow yourself to center more and more in this present moment. Letting go any other preoccupations or worries. Simply preoccupy yourself with this very moment. And the more you relax, the more you may perceive this beauty of the presence. And now you manifest the honest intent to become a channel for the divine grace for the respective person that you visualize in front of you. Simply choose a person that is very dear to you, or a person which is in depression now, or anybody that you want to help. Choose now one person and you manifest the intent to become a channel for the divine grace for this person. And while you do that, you also allow yourself to center in the middle of your heart. So you manifest this intent with all your heart, from the middle of your chest. And as you inhabit more and more this special space of your heart, we will implore, full of love and aspiration, in our heart, the divine grace for that person. And we will do that until we perceive a clear mystical state of awakening and communion in our heart. So until you put your heart in action. We continue to remain centered and totally present in our heart while we simply implore in our heart the divine grace for the respective person. And then we direct the eyes closed in a strabismus convergent, as if you're looking towards the top of the head, above your head, and evoke there the supreme divine grace to overflow in us and through us for that person. So again, with the eyes closed, if you're looking up towards the top of your head, above your head, that's where Sahasrara is the name of the chakra, which is there, which has to do with the direct connection with God. So orienting the eyes upwards, we invoke the supreme grace to overflow in us and through us for that person. You don't need to do this method in a hurry, but you need to do it until you will perceive very clearly the effect. And once you start perceiving grace manifesting and flowing as a waterfall of light descending inside of your being from the top of the head, and when it is the heart level, project it towards that person, perceiving how he or she receives it. So from the top of the head, overflowing this waterfall of bright light, white bright light, and when it reaches the heart, you're projecting it, you're offering it as a gift of light, of healing, of love towards the person that you want to help. And perceive how the person is receiving it. Now take a deep breath and come back. But again, the process and method can be done for much longer time. And something always happening also inside of us, of course, besides the special spiritual connection that is created or amplified in that moment for the respective person. And when you do it in a group for one person, the effect is much more intense. Yeah. And you always end with a moment of gratitude towards God and the Holy Spirit. So let's do this short moment of gratitude. And this was the very short method, but if you got it, it is very, very efficient and very beautiful, both for yourself and for the others. And it also refers to this art of giving, because giving, when you do it well, it is also a way which opens the path for healing. Yeah, and the same with cultivating attitude in our life, with the real attitude. Thank you. I hope many will benefit from this.
Hello, everyone. This is Amit Goswami, quantum physicist, consciousness researcher, and sometimes quantum activist. I am going to speak to you about sex, love, and the new physics. What does physics have to do with sex and love? And today, many people are even confused about why should we have to mention sex and love separately? Isn't sex the same thing as love? Or put the other way, love is nothing but sex. When we have sex and we allow sex to dissolve into love, then very interesting thing happens to the heart. It's no longer just a blood pump. It picks up an additional characteristic, a purely quantum characteristic. This is where quantum physics comes in. And this polarity is what makes love so full of wonders, so full of something that we need to know, that we want to know, that will make my life wonderful. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this series will be coming up soon. And thank you so much, Dr. Onisor, for your valuable exercise. If anyone can take away these exercises and implements them in their lives, there will be a lot of benefit. A lot of people are witness to that. And I'm sure such benefits or such practices will benefit more and more people in times to come. Now, we know that the festive season is coming up, and we will not be having the Friday evening talks for 2 weeks, for the next week and the week after that. So we will meet you again on 8th of January, Friday at 8:30 p.m. IST, Indian Standard Time. And we, from the Quantum Activism's team, we wish you a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year in advance. I'm sure that you are going to have a wonderful time, and this ending of the 2020 will take care of a lot of the things that we have toiled for earlier this year. I am fairly sure that with a renewed vow and with a renewed energy, 2021 will be a game changer for all of us in many ways than one. Thank you so much. Be with us. See you on 8th of Jan 2021.